All right, here we go. Hello, this is Greg Allison from Galactic Greg's, coming to you from an unknown, undisclosed location somewhere in the Milky Way galaxy, albeit very close to some very important space anniversary activities that are coming up here real soon. As a matter of fact, I am president also of the Huntsville Alabama L5 Society, the local Huntsville Alabama chapter of the National Space Society, and we have a big gala event that we're going to have to celebrate the 50th anniversary of the moon landing, and which occurred when I was just a kid, 9 years old, and I was already excited about space from the time I was 7. Apollo 7 turned me on. But the thing is, we're going to host this program here in town on the splashdown date of the Apollo program, because we want to focus on the future, because HAL5, the National Space Society, is a future-focused organization, and we want to look forward. We want to take the view of how we went to the moon and let the people that took us there inform us how to get back and to get farther into the future. So the title of our program is The Past Informs the Future. And so what we've done to facilitate that is create a panel with 4 Apollo engineers, people that helped work the program, the actual people that developed the system, and have them talk to us. And we're going to have 2 participants on our panel that are the younger generation that are working to get us back. One of our panelists actually is still working to get us back, and he was one of the original Apollo guys, so he's kind of a crossover. He works both ways on this panel. And I've got one of our panelists with us here tonight, and this is David Hewitt. Now, David is a young gentleman of 42 by my standard. He's young, I guess. And when he was, I believe, a freshman or pretty young in college, I took him out to sea, out to the ocean, to launch Raccoons, hybrid rockets that we developed, and he was a part of developing those, from high-altitude balloons. We launched the balloons from ships in the ocean. So when he was a college student, I'm taking him out in the ocean. David and I have had a lot of great adventures together, and he's been a good cohort in a lot of these things, and we're both officers of HAL5. I'm currently a returning president, and David is my vice president. Without David, I couldn't get anything done because I am so busy. It's just crazy. So I'm glad I've got David as my right-hand person in HAL5. So David, tell me a little bit about yourself and how you see this program.
Well, all right. You're going to edit this, right?
I can, but
sorry. I'm sorry. I just got I don't know how the background noise if you hear the garbage truck working. All right.
It's fine.
Sorry about that. All right. So, well, we have a really exciting panel of like Greg said, lots of veterans of the Apollo era and young people as well. I'm coming at it from the young entrepreneurial side of this, and it's relatively young. Like you said, I'm no spring chicken at 42, but we're trying to help. We're trying to foster a new generation to get people interested in this stuff. But anyways, it's going to be a lot of fun. It's very relevant to things that I actually have been doing in my career in the last 10 or so years. Greg and I were involved with one of the failed Lunar X Prize bids. Learned a lot of lessons from that, and I moved on to another Lunar X Prize bid that got a little bit more traction because we had some funding and it was a Dynetics team. But it was just barely scratching the surface of a mission. And I've also spent some serious effort working on lander test beds. So my company I work for, Dynetics, is I'm in the space division there, and we do a lot of different things. But one of the things we worked on early on was building test articles for hovering lunar lander test beds that flew out at NASA Marshall Space Flight Center. One was a cold gas test article and it could fly for like 20 seconds. And the second one was powered by hydrogen peroxide thrusters, and they could hover for like 30 seconds. That was NASA Mighty Eagle. And that basically led to a whole bunch of other little things that I've been able to take part in my career. But most recently, I'm actually working on a robotic lander that's going to the moon in 2021. all of our efforts on different X Prize related things and different missions has finally got us into a partnership with Astrobotic Technologies of Pittsburgh, and we are.
Who's funding that lander?
NASA is actually funding it. NASA actually bought the mission. And
this is going to be funded and it's ongoing irrespective of our other lunar landing programs.
This is a precursor lander. It's like a 300 kilogram payload lander. So not much. It's flying a whole bunch of rideshare experiments.
Cool.
It was actually Astrobotics' entry into the X Prize before they walked away from that. But they were able to get funding to develop it, and Dynetics has been partnering with them for over a year now. And I wrote the proposal, the tech volume of the proposal for us to get the work we're doing with them 2 years ago, and I couldn't talk about it for like a year. and then they announced it.
Like me when Hart bid to do the Virgin Galactic propulsion system, I didn't talk about it for a couple of years. And so I kept it so quiet that our Hart vice president didn't even know about it.
Right. So you understand the world of non-disclosure agreements. So. Amen. We've since gotten ourselves on contract, and I've been working supporting their effort, and we're actually about to ramp up that effort because we're going to fly in 2 years, so we got a lot to do. And I'm in charge of integrating the propulsion system on this lander. So this is the perspective I'm going to be talking from on this panel. I'll sum up my career nicely on the panel too, but let's talk. I don't want to talk about me anymore. I want to talk about our panelists.
All right, I'll bring up this HAL 5 page. This is let's see.
Yeah.
All right, now I'm here.
I can see it.
Hang on. Yeah, you should be able to see it. Now let me open it all the way up. There we go. And this is the web page of the Huntsville Alabama L5 Society. David's the vice president. I'm the president, and who knows? Maybe he'll be president one day in the not too distant future. And then we'll bring in other fresh blood, young people. We want to see young people run these organizations like this. And that's what this is all about. It's about the future. So I'm going to click down here on the read more section. It's going to talk about this program, and I'm going to scroll down. And it says lunar exploration, the past informs the future. And this is going to be the 23rd of July at 7 p.m. at Straight 2L, the art room on the second floor. It's going to be in Huntsville, Alabama at the campus 805. Now, if you're in Huntsville, Alabama, and you go into main section of Straight to L and look on the ceiling, you'll see a hybrid rocket that David and I ran from our lives from on the deck of the NASA Pearl River barge as part of our Halo program. This was launched about a month in the anniversary is about a month ago, July the 20th, which is a month before the Apollo anniversary.
Right. June the 20th.
June the 20th of 1998. So we just passed an anniversary for that. So you could always walk by and look at this rocket on the way up to our panel. So we've got a piece of our history hangs from the ceiling in this facility. That's one reason we love it. So plus, they have monkey knots and they play with the space thing a lot there. So our panel,
they got really good views.
Yeah, I don't know if you can read this from your phone, so I'll just go ahead and read them out. The panel members, the panel member, I can't even talk. The panel members are Ron Creel, who was involved in developing the rover that went on the moon, which is developed. The first lunar car, electric car, was developed in Huntsville, Alabama. Ron Creel was part of that team that developed that car, and he was also very instrumental in our HAL 5 Halo program, HAL 2 liftoff, which we developed those hybrid rockets in. Ron was a very, very active guy in that. And of course, the second individual here, you might have heard of him, David Hewitt. And, and then there's Logan. And then there's Logan Kennedy. Tell us about Logan.
So Logan Kennedy is a young engineer that works at NASA Marshall Space Flight Center, and he is involved with a whole bunch of different efforts. The team I'm working with at Astrobotic is being supported by some NASA people and on this one program. And Logan used to work on that, but he's supporting some other. There's several commercial lunar landers that are getting help from NASA right now, and on a very small time basis. And Logan is a part of that group that is helping to basically coordinate lessons learned from NASA experience into the design of new commercial lunar landers. And so that's a big part of his focus that he's been working on. He's also a veteran of the NASA Mighty Eagle lander that Dynetics built the propulsion system for.
Awesome.
So he's flown lunar lander test beds himself. So he was a test conductor on that. And then so that's Logan Kennedy in a nutshell. He's very excited about coming to be a part of this.
Awesome. And next we have Kenny Mitchell. Kenny Mitchell's been around NASA for quite some time. When I met him, he was a program manager for the NODES program, developing nodes 2 and 3 to fly on the International Space Station, and I worked under him on that project. I actually designed all your electrical layout on the nodes 2 and 3. So the space station's been flying 20 years, so I've got hardware that's been in space with people in it for some time. So, and I've done other space station projects before and after that, but Kenny's been a real dynamic guy. He went to Russia and tried to cut some deal with the Russians on various things. I think he might have been involved in the mirror thing. And today he's working on space launch systems. So he's trying to get us back to the moon. So he's been involved with it all the way through. So he's one of the few that's worked both ends of it. So he's our go-between guy from the Apollo era to the new era. And then we've got Skeet Vaughn. Skeet Vaughn, when I first met him, I was working space station for Grumman back then, working robotic systems. And my lead was a old propulsion guy who worked NASA before it was NASA, back when it was Army at Marshall Space Flight Center. And he worked all the old boosters, and he also was quite involved in the Saturn booster propulsion system, the first stage, the F1 rockets, and the failure analysis and all that stuff for those rockets. And his name was George McKay, but he introduced me to Skeet Vaughn back then, and introduced Skeet Vaughn as Dr. Lightning, because Skeet had been involved in doing a lot of the lightning research. You know, we had a problem with Apollo 12. It took a direct hit from a lightning bolt, shut everything down in the Apollo command capsule. Had it not been for the robustness of the Saturn V launch vehicle, that mission would have maybe blown up on the pad. But all the systems in the propulsion of the launch vehicle, the inertia ring, all its avionics just kept on humming and kept on working. And just so happens that Luke Talley was involved in developing that system, which survived the lightning strike. So tell us about that, David.
So Luke Talley is a longtime veteran of the computer industry. He was lucky to have started his career helping out with IBM in the early 1960s. Well, actually, he was on the periphery. He wasn't even at IBM yet, but he was doing something else, some Army ballistic missile guidance system or something. He'll tell you the story. But he discovered that this newfangled thing called digital was being used on the Saturn and the Apollo, and he got really interested in it. So he went to the library and said he couldn't find any books on it, so he had to really look hard. And he ended up teaching himself the theory for digital computing when everybody else was doing analog. And he was one of the pioneers, because he became part of a group of people that started taking a class. And once that class was done, all of a sudden, most of them got hired by IBM to work on the instrument unit. And
Wow.
And so he I don't know his exact role on the team there, but he was an electrical engineer that came out of school in the analog era and helped start the digital era. And thanks to the instrument unit for the Apollo for the Saturn V, and the guidance computers for the command module and the lunar module, that kicked off the computer revolution that we've been having ever since.
And thanks to that, we can talk via a computer, desktop, and your computer telephone, via the internet, through a program called Zoom. All this is digital. And so it's amazing how far we've come with digital, and that was the genesis. So
Luke Talley is a veteran of not only the early stuff with Apollo, but he branched out and developed a whole bunch of stuff for IBM, and worked on the Patriot missile in the 70s, and ended up going to another state for a couple decades, working IBM stuff somewhere else. And he was one of the early, and he was basically worked on the early innovation teams for the printers, for consumer grade printers, which was a big project for him in the 80s.
Yeah,
and,
another one.
Yeah. So, anyways, he's got a big story to tell. He's also a docent at the Space and Rocket Center, so he tells his story there as well.
Steve Vaughn has done that quite a bit. I don't know if he's still the docent there, but I assume he is. So,
yeah.
So these are people that you can meet if you come to Huntsville and go to the Space and Rocket Center. But better yet, meet them and you'll have a chance to ask them questions at this program. If you're in Huntsville, by all means, come. If you're anywhere near Huntsville, or can make it to Huntsville, this is going to be a program to really see, because all the rest of the programs about the Apollo anniversary are going to focus on the past. Well, we're going to cover the past, looking into the future, how we get back. We're about exploration. We're about getting back there. Hey, I love the past. When I was a kid, I heard them firing the S-1C first stage of the Saturn V rocket. I could hear it from where I grew up, 70 miles away, low rumble. And I was just thrilled, excited, because I knew that was going to take us to the moon. We hadn't been to the moon yet. And that was just beyond compare thrilling. And I could not imagine that all these years we've not been back to the moon since I was a kid, 12. So we're looking at trying to get us back. We're going to be focused here on more the technical aspects of it. The funding may be the biggest, hardest hurdle to climb. It seems to have been the case all along. We've had a lot of false starts in space exploration. Let's hope this is not one of them. And our work through National Space Society also tackles that end of things. And I've been involved in that. I was chairman of the policy committee of the National Space Society for 10 years and ran the halls of Congress and those kind of things. So we really are trying to tackle this problem from all ends to make us, to ensure that we have a better future for humanity. That's our angle here. Dave, what would you like to add about that? And let me share screen here. There we go.
All right. So, well, hey, yay. I think one of the important things to think about for the takeaway for this panel in our discussion is we're basically trying to incorporate lessons learned and ways that we can not have to reinvent the wheel of something that had already been done by the pioneers. So we need to learn about it. It's going to be a general discussion of the context of trying not to repeat some fundamental mistakes that might have been made in the past.
Don't repeat your mistakes. That's the biggest thing. Don't have to relearn the bad stuff. I think that's the biggest thing we can get from it. But Straight Down is a great venue for this program. The owners are members of HAL 5. The key owner actually works at NASA, and his wife was there. Previously, she just retired. And so these people are all about space. Now, they have this brewery. They own a brewery, and that's what Straight Dale is. And it has a space theme running throughout the entire place. So it's a lot of fun to go to. They have good food. I mean, the food is excellent. And hey, I drink unsweet tea when I go there myself. I'm glad to serve it. They have good stuff.
So something to add onto that, our room is going to be on the 3rd floor. This building used to be a school, and now it's a brewery and a complex with several rooms that people were having alcohol and food and having a good time.
But you can throw axes, so you can drink alcohol and throw axes.
Right. Yeah, that's a great combination. And so it's quite the complex. But we're on the 3rd floor. There's a big classroom on the 3rd floor, and we're going to be up there. And we're actually going to have an open bar serving beers up there as well. So that'll be a feature of this program. We don't do that all the time. Normally, our meetings are at the Huntsville-Madison County Public Library auditorium, where that kind of stuff isn't allowed. But hey, maybe once a year or something, we can go have some fun over at the brewery.
Yeah, and we typically meet the first Thursday of every month at the library. Some months we have exceptions due to programming conflicts.
Right. So no, that's I think we have covered everything we really need to cover. There's going to be I'm hoping to see a lot of people at this thing. It'd be really neat to really pack that place out. I've seen a lot of panels in that room, and there's some good stuff in there. There's a good room for it.
good place to have it. They've got a good projector. David's bringing the sound system. David also has a band that he's active 12 foot-pound force. And so I encourage everybody, if you can all make it, please give it your best shot to make it to this event. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be very informative. And if you can't make it, you'll wish you'd been there. And David, I really appreciate you coming here on the channel. And
yeah, no problem. I was just testing out this Zoom software for the first time. So you know, I'm on a sweaty walk around downtown Huntsville. So I decided to take out of my time to sweat on camera for you.
Well, David is exercising. That's a meritorious thing to do. And David, I'd love to have you back on this channel because you've got such a wealth of experience and background and knowledge of space history. You've made quite a number of accomplishments for yourself in these areas. And you're very versed on the entire space industry, what's going on. So if you would like, I'd love to have you back on this channel many times in the coming months. Maybe make it a regular. I don't know.
Well, that's a good segue. This panel is going to be the first panel for me in the season of panels. I'm going to be a guest at the Dragon Con comic and sci-fi fantasy convention in Atlanta on Labor Day weekend. If anybody's going to Dragon Con, I am a guest. So I'll be on several panels in the space track run by Lorraine Glenn, who is a contributor to Somehow 5 Things. She's Atlanta based, but I'm sitting on some commercial space panel with them, and I also do a rocket engine and a suitcase demo for the kids. And the Dragon Con kids are a lot of fun to do that with. And you know, there'll be some other panels I'll be on in the science track and maybe the maker track as well. And my band is playing a couple times too. So it'll be a busy weekend.
Awesome. Fantastic. You can see David, go see him. I mean, David's a great guy. I think the world of him. He's my right-hand guy in HAL 5. If he wasn't there to be VP, I couldn't do it. So thank you.
Well, I couldn't do it without the team we've got. So
amen. Amen. Oh, we got a good team. I really appreciate all of them. Just David's the one I can bring on here right now because he's with me. But David is really he's a strong individual. Big help. Thanks, David. Appreciate it. Thanks for coming on tonight. And if y'all have not subscribed to my channel, please hit the subscribe button, click the update notification bell, because there'll be a lot more programs coming out that you'll want to watch. Thank you for watching.
All right.